What if I told you that the greatest empire the world has ever known, a civilization with technology and wealth beyond imagination, an island larger than North Africa and modern-day Turkey combined, vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune? This is the story of Atlantis. Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're diving deep into perhaps the most enduring legend of all time. It's a tale that has captivated explorers, mystics, and storytellers for over 2,400 years, blurring the line between history and myth. But where did this incredible story come from? And could any of it possibly be true? The entire legend of Atlantis originates from just one source, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, in his dialogues written around 360 BCE. Plato claimed the story wasn't a fable, but a true history passed down from ancient Egyptian priests to the wise Athenian statesman Solon. According to this account, the events took place 9,000 years before Solon's time, placing Atlantis's downfall around 9,600 BCE. The story is a tale of two cities. First, there was an ancient, prehistoric Athens, the hero of the story. This Athens was the perfect society, a real-life version of the ideal state Plato described in his masterpiece, The Republic. Its people were virtuous, brave, and lived communally, despising wealth and focused only on protecting liberty. Then there was their rival, the island empire of Atlantis. Located out in the Atlantic Ocean, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we call the Strait of Gibraltar, Atlantis was a wonder of the world. It was founded by the sea god Poseidon himself. The capital city was a marvel of engineering, built in concentric rings of land and water, connected by massive canals and bridges. The walls gleamed with metals, the outer one coated in brass, the middle in tin, and the inner wall of the citadel flashed with the mysterious red light of a precious metal called orichalcum. At the very center stood a colossal temple to Poseidon, covered in silver and gold, housing a golden statue of the god so immense it touched the roof. The island was incredibly rich, producing 2 harvests a year, with abundant minerals, timber, and even herds of elephants. Their military was unstoppable, with a navy of 1,200 warships and a vast army. For generations, the Atlanteans were noble and virtuous. But over time, their divine nature was diluted. They became filled with, as Plato wrote, ungovernable ambition and power. They grew greedy, corrupt, and arrogant. This moral decay led them on a campaign of conquest, and they swept through the Mediterranean, enslaving peoples in North Africa and Europe. Their goal was to conquer all the remaining free peoples, including the virtuous ancient Athenians. This is where the heroic Athenians stepped in. Even after all their allies abandoned them, they fought on alone, defeated the mighty Atlantean Empire, and liberated the conquered nations. But the story doesn't end there. Zeus, king of the gods, saw the corruption of Atlantis and gathered the other gods to pass judgment. Then, as Plato tells it, there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. So what are we to make of this incredible story? This question leads us to 3 very different theories. The first, and the one held by the vast majority of mainstream academics, is that Atlantis is a myth, a complete invention by Plato. The evidence for this is pretty strong. First, absolutely no other ancient writer, historian, or poet ever mentions Atlantis before Plato. If a continent-sized empire had fought a world war and then vanished, you would expect someone else to have written about it. It's hard to keep something like that a secret. Even Plato's own star student, the philosopher Aristotle, reportedly said that Atlantis was simply invented by his teacher. So why would Plato make it all up? For philosophy, of course. The story is a perfect political allegory. The virtuous, land-based ancient Athens is his ideal state in action. Atlantis is its opposite, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris, wealth, and imperial ambition. It's a powerful warning to Plato's own city of Athens, which had recently lost its own naval empire after becoming corrupt and overreaching. In this view, searching for a physical Atlantis is like trying to find the real-world address of Hogwarts. You're missing the point. But here's where it gets interesting. What if Plato didn't invent the story from scratch? This brings us to our second theory, that Atlantis is a distorted historical memory. This idea suggests that Plato based his story on a real catastrophe that was so huge, its memory was passed down for centuries, and the number one candidate for this real event is the collapse of the Minoan civilization. The Minoans were a real, incredibly advanced Bronze Age civilization centered on the island of Crete. They weren't Greek, but they built a powerful naval empire that dominated the Aegean Sea between about 2700 and 1450 BCE. They built vast, labyrinthine palaces with advanced plumbing, created beautiful art, and seemed to have a special reverence for bulls, with famous frescoes showing athletes leaping over them. This already has echoes of Plato's story, a powerful, advanced naval empire on an island with a connection to bulls. Then, around 1600 BCE, disaster struck. A volcano on the nearby island of Thera, which we now call Santorini, erupted. And this wasn't just any eruption, it was one of the most violent explosions in human history. The eruption blew the center of the island of Thera completely out, leaving behind the massive water-filled crater or caldera that we see today. Some have pointed out that the remaining crescent-shaped island surrounding the water looks a lot like Plato's description of the concentric rings of Atlantis' capital. The eruption would have also triggered colossal tsunamis, perhaps hundreds of feet high, which would have slammed into the coast of Crete, wiping out the entire Minoan fleet and their coastal cities in minutes. The sky would have gone dark as tons of volcanic ash rained down, poisoning farmland and causing a volcanic winter that led to widespread famine. The Minoan civilization never recovered. It was a powerful, advanced island civilization destroyed by a sudden cataclysm involving the sea. The parallels are undeniable. But what about the problems? Plato said Atlantis was destroyed 9,000 years before his time, not 900. And he placed it in the Atlantic Ocean, not the Mediterranean. Proponents of the Minoan theory have a clever answer for this, a translation error. They suggest that when the story was passed from Egyptian priests to the Greeks, a symbol for 100 was mistaken for the symbol for 1,000. If you divide all of Plato's numbers by 10, the timeline becomes a perfect match, 900 years. And the gigantic, unbelievable dimensions of the island suddenly become much more realistic for Crete. As for the location, Plato might have simply moved the setting to the mythical, far-off Atlantic to make his philosophical story more epic and grand. While it's not a perfect fit, the theory of the Minoans and the Thera eruption is by far the most scientifically plausible explanation for a real event that could have inspired the legend of Atlantis. Of course, once you start looking for lost continents, you can find candidates almost anywhere. Some researchers point to the submerged marshes of southern Spain, where satellite images show strange rectangular and circular formations. Others look to the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, an underwater rock formation that some believe is a man-made wall, though geologists insist it's a natural phenomenon. And then there's our third and final theory, that Atlantis is the literal truth. This idea was kicked into high gear in 1882 by a man named Ignatius Donnelly, an American politician and amateur scientist. His book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, became a massive bestseller. Donnelly argued that Plato's story was 100% factual history. He claimed Atlantis was a huge continent in the Atlantic that was the mother culture of all the world's great ancient civilizations, from the Egyptians to the Maya. He believed the gods of ancient myths were just the deified kings and queens of Atlantis. His book created the modern image of Atlantis that we know today, a lost super-civilization and the origin of everything. Donnelly's ideas, though rejected by science, opened the floodgates. Mystics like Helena Blavatsky claimed the Atlanteans were an ancient race of giants with psychic powers. The sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce gave detailed psychic readings describing Atlantean technology, including powerful energy crystals whose misuse led to their doom. This version of the story, filled with high technology and spiritual power, became a cornerstone of New Age beliefs. More sinisterly, the myth was twisted by Nazi ideologues, who imagined Atlantis as the homeland of a pure Aryan master race, using the legend to justify their horrific racist agenda. Today, the legacy of Atlantis is everywhere in our popular culture. From Disney's movie Atlantis, The Lost Empire, to the comic book hero Aquaman, ruler of an underwater kingdom, to video games like Assassin's Creed, the idea of the sunken city is a permanent fixture in our collective imagination. So after more than 2 millennia, what is the final verdict? The academic world is confident that Atlantis was a philosophical invention, but the story of the Minoan collapse offers a tantalizing hint of a real-world catastrophe that might have been the legend's seed. And the literal believers continue their search, convinced of a hidden history that would rewrite the textbooks. Perhaps the true importance of Atlantis isn't about whether it can be found on a map. Its real location is in the human mind. It's a timeless story about greatness and self-destruction, a warning about the dangers of arrogance and power. It serves as a mirror for our own anxieties about climate change, technological hubris, and the fragility of our own civilization. The search for Atlantis is, in the end, a search for ourselves. So what are your thoughts on this? Is Atlantis a myth, a memory, or a real lost continent? Let us know down in the comments. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.